Hello, everyone. This is the David Goodman Reality and Truth Show. My name is Vanita Lambert, and I'm the host of this show, and I'm really very pleased that you decided to spend time with us today. I want to also welcome my very special guest, Donald E. Smart of Smart Law Firm. Thank you for being on the show, Donald.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
How are you today?
I'm well. I'm good.
Good. I love this guy. He's on the board with us, and he speaks so eloquently. He's right up there with Obama. I love the way he talks. So you're really going to enjoy this show. And not only that, he has some really good information to share on many different topics. But today, I wanted him to just elaborate a little bit on the Tyre Nichols case, because that's so big in the news and so prevalent with all of us and with me personally. So, Don, you want to share, what would you like to share about the Tyre Nichols case? Where would you like to start? There's so many places we can start.
It's almost as if once again an American tragedy, an American nightmare has taken place. Once again, we see that an unarmed person of color has been killed at the hands of the police. What is different about this situation is that the officers are African American, as was Tyre Nichols, but that does not make it any less of an American tragedy.
You're right. Before, you know what, let me take a step back. I forgot to ask you to please, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background first, and then I'll answer that question for you.
Well, I have been working on constitutional law matters for a while now, going back to my law school days, and again, one of the most interesting aspects of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, is the Fourth Amendment. And the Fourth Amendment is critically involved in how we understand the Tyre Nichols case. So much of the work that I do as far as constitutional law matters are concerned involve whether or not a search is correct, whether or not there was probable cause, or whether or not an actual written warrant was executed properly according to the terms and conditions of the warrant. And so for me, not only is the Tyre Nichols matter a human tragedy, once again, we see what happens when a fundamental constitutional right against illegal searches and seizures takes place. It's literally a matter of life and death.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, for me, on a personal level, it was just so humiliating and so hurtful to watch 5 black police officers, beat a black man to death. I have 2 sons, and it just took me a while to get my head wrapped around that. It's humiliating because it's usually, we're able to say, oh, it's a them, but it's not them, it's us against us. And I think not just me, and I talk to, I sit down with so many families, and I talk to so many people. Most black women, middle-aged black women like myself that I talk to, we are just overwhelmed with the ignorance of it. We're just so humiliated, so, and I guess that's something we're probably going to have to talk to our psychologist about. How do we get past that? What do you have to say about that portion of it? How we feel as a black woman, or how do you feel as a black man watching 5 black officers in a position of power beat an innocent young black man to death? Does that do something to you internally, past the law? I mean, just personally.
Well, it does. It very definitely is a trigger. It very definitely takes me back to a number of my own encounters with the police department. You may not know this, but I was an assistant Shelby County attorney in Memphis for 7 years. And during that period of time, I was stopped at least 10 times by the Memphis police. They never found anything. There was never any infraction. There was never anything that they could point to as a reason or a basis for probable cause to stop my car.
No speeding, they had no reason to stop you.
Nothing like that.
Just that you
Middle
were...
of the day, evening. I think in part I was driving a luxury car, and in a couple of instances they cited, "Is this your car?" But quite frankly, at the end of the day, I could have ended up just like Tyree Nichols for no good reason or for no apparent reason at all.
Black cops, white cops, both?
Black cops and white cops.
Okay.
And it was an interesting situation because being an assistant county attorney, sometimes they recognized me and they would apologize, and I tried to use those opportunities to have a conversation. But quite frankly, still, on several instances, I was on the wrong side of a gun pointed at me for no good reason other than that I happen to be an African American male of a certain age. So when I look in Tyree Nichols' face, when I see the emotion and the despair and the anger of his mother and of his family and loved ones, I see myself. That could have been me, my cousin, my nephews, my friends. Very personal.
Yes, I am so sorry you had to go through that, first of all. And I always think, well, my sons have to go through that here. Or if they visit in the South. And one of my sons, they did go to, I think it was Tennessee. And they got stopped. My oldest son was an athlete. He has tattoos, he has dreads, but he works for Yale IT department. You know, he has an education, and his minor is in criminal justice, so he knows the law and everything. And they didn't get out of the car. They didn't get too aggressive with them, but they were stopped. It was him and his friend, who was clean cut, fade, haircut, and two girls in the back, and they did get stopped. They were just visiting on vacation. And, they weren't like smoking or didn't have anything card. They were just stopped.
Well,
and they were recording everything. And this was recent. This was maybe 2 years ago. Well, wait a minute. She was pregnant. The baby's almost 2. Less than 3 years ago. That's when this happened. So in this, I believe it was Tennessee. They went to the mountains. Aren't the mountains in Tennessee? I do believe
yes, the
that's
Smoky
where.
Mountains.
Yes, I do believe that's where they were. They were somewhere deep south, because I was worried. I was like, oh my God, you're almost going to be in Alabama, and that's crazy, because things happen in the South that don't always happen up here. But it did happen there, and I was taken back by that. I'm like, still, we're here. And this is still happening. They're getting stopped. So I am sorry you had to go through that. I'm sorry for everyone that had to go through that. And, I'm sorry that I had to think about that. And I'm sorry that, we need to have these conversations with our children, with our sons, and with our daughters too, because I've seen females, if you are stopped, you being a lawyer, if you are stopped without probable cause, what should you do?
Well, there are a couple of things that you can do. What you can do is you can put your hands in the 10 and 2 position so that the officers see where your hands are. You may also turn on the inside light so that the compartment, the front and the back of the vehicle is well lit. You can turn off the radio or turn off any music or sound so that there's no question that there's good, clear, and transparent communication. You can turn off the vehicle. You can do that before they come to the passenger or driver's side of the car so that there is no concern that you would try to do something untoward. You can also, when you are asked to comply, to speak in a very clear and slower voice. And this may not always be possible, but in the heat of the moment, if you have to reach into your console, if you have to reach into your glove compartment, if you have to do anything where there might be some question about the speed or the intent or the purpose of what you are doing, ask the officer, this is what I'm about to do. Is that okay with you? And to move carefully and to move deliberately. Those are 5 or 6 immediate things that you can do to diffuse the typical traffic stop. And, mind you, these traffic stops are taking place at nighttime, as we see in the Tyree Nichols case. It could be in the daytime, it could be in the afternoon, but often it's 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, it's on the side of a highway, it may be dark, and quite frankly, the traffic stop that we see on television, in news, in articles, can be an absolute life or death situation. The officers who stop you, they don't know that you're an attorney. They don't know that you're dressed to go to an event. They don't know if you have anything in the car, if there's a weapon in the car, if there's something else that may harm them. And so they are going to approach the vehicle with a very high degree of energy, which if you can't help them to move past that, again, it could result in a life or death situation.
Wow. So that's good information. So most of the time it's at night. So one of the things, I just want to reiterate a couple of things that you said. Spread your fingers and put it on the steering wheel.
Yes, in the 10 and 2 position.
What is that called?
10 and 2.
Oh,
at
10
10
and
o'clock
2.
and 2 o'clock.
Okay.
So you're right there,
Okay.
hands in front. Yes.
Okay, and speak very respectfully.
And slowly.
And slow. Turn on the lights and don't make any movements. If you do make any movements, just let the officer know what you're going to do. Don't ask them, why are you stopping me? Don't interrogate the officer, just, because I think that takes it up a level.
Yes, it
what
does.
I normally do, I just flirt with them. And I'm very friendly. I'm like, hello, officer, how are you this morning? And, I just talk to them, and I've gotten a couple of warnings like that. But, then again, I'm not a black man, and, you have your pride and everything. I'm a customer service rep, so I'm as nice as I can to everybody all the time. It doesn't matter if you're an officer or, somebody I just met, or if you're a millionaire, or if you're on Medicaid or Medicare or whatever. It doesn't matter who you are. I try to treat everybody the same, but especially with officers and with, everything going on today, I'm very friendly with them. I always say good morning, I always smile, and I keep my hands where they can see them, and, I give them whatever they want, and I explain why I'm speeding, because I'm always speeding. I shouldn't be, but I always am, rushing from appointment to appointment. But unfortunately, there's been many instances where if you are a black male, it's either run or be killed. And they have that mentality because they've seen it so many times. And, there's a George Floyd, there's a Tyree Nichols, there's a Rodney King, but there's 1,000 other no names that we don't know about that happened to, that they may know about. So their first instinct is to run.
Well, in response to your question, one thing that everyone can and should do, 2 things. Number one, on YouTube or on other social media channels, there is a substantial body of work in the form of videos and even podcasts under the category, what to do when you're stopped by the police. And I would urge everyone to take a moment and to look at as many of these videos as you can. They will replicate what we're sharing today, but it also goes into more of the do's and the don'ts. The second thing that I would recommend is that everyone take a moment and again go on the internet and learn a little bit about the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment states no unreasonable searches and seizures. And it's important for you to understand what are your rights, what are your Fourth Amendment rights inside of a traffic stop. We must remember that a traffic stop is an exception to the broader protection of the Fourth Amendment, because a traffic stop takes place without the benefit of a warrant, without the benefit of a signed certificate from an officer of the law, it is considered an exception to the Fourth Amendment, and therefore your Fourth Amendment rights are lessened, they are weaker, they are attenuated, and so you need to really understand what are your rights and at what point might law enforcement be violating your Fourth Amendment rights, because just because a traffic stop is an exception to all of the required elements of the Fourth Amendment, you still have Fourth Amendment rights, and you need to take the time to understand what those are.
Okay, so does that mean that if there's a traffic stop, okay, your Fourth Amendment rights are lessened, does that mean that they can search your car, things like that?
Well,
Or, you're saying they don't have to have, written warrants or whatever. Can they, unless, say for example, they smell weed or something. If they smell weed, then that's probable cause to search the car?
that
Can
is
they do
it's a
that?
possibility.
Okay.
Let's take a half a step back.
Okay,
The Fourth Amendment says that you shall not be stopped or searched without a warrant, without probable cause, signed by an officer of the court. There are 6 major exceptions to the Fourth Amendment predicates.
okay,
One exception is a traffic stop, and what the legal precedent allows is for a law officer, police officer, to stop a vehicle without the benefit of a warrant, and certainly without the benefit of a signed certificate from a court officer, and that traffic stop is based on probable cause. Just because there is probable cause to stop you, that doesn't necessarily mean that the police officer has a right to search your car.
okay,
And this brings us to the Tyree Nichols case. Allegedly, the probable cause for the traffic stop was that Tyree was driving driving the wrong way on a one-way street. The traffic stop took place on Range Road, which is a two-way street. So they threw that excuse out, and then the next excuse or basis for probable cause was that he seemed to be driving erratically on a two-way street. And yet, for some reason, the dash cam and the officer's cam were turned off, and so it was inconclusive. There was no footage to determine whether or not he was driving erratically. So at the end of the day, and this is why it's important to try to become familiar with the nuances of the Fourth Amendment, and that is because though there may be probable cause, let's say a license plate light may not be in service. That is a basis for probable cause. But even if there is a traffic stop based on a license plate light being out, it does not give the police officer the right to search the car.
Okay.
Now, let's get an A on the exam.
Okay.
Let's get an A on the exam. The police officer may look into the car. You will see them with the flashlight looking, checking, trying to see something, trying to see what's going on. If they see something, that's additional probable cause, and it's fact-based. That may or may not give the officers the right to search the car. It's a matter of looking at the facts. But you need to know about probable cause, and that your vehicle may be stopped. But in and of itself, it doesn't mean that the officer has a right to search the car, search the trunk, open up the trunk, open up the glove compartment. That is beyond the initial probable cause predicate, as they say.
right. It's my understanding that, since we're talking about Tyree, he was dragged out of the car. Is that Is that correct?
As a matter of fact,
Was he dragged out, or, do they have the right to ask you to step out of your car? I mean, say they're looking into your car with a light, and they say for example, they saw a joint on the seat in Tyree's car, and then they asked him to step out, and he refused to step out, and then, can they just drag you out like that?
well, as a matter of fact, assuming that there is legitimate probable cause for the stop, then under many circumstances, the police officer may ask you to step out of the vehicle, except in the most extreme cases, they see a weapon, a knife, or something. There isn't any reason to drag you out of the car.
Okay.
You must be given an opportunity to comply. Even if you think compliance is unreasonable or impossible, you must try to comply unless, again, in the Tyree Nichols case, it was impossible. Let's look at the fine details of the stop.
Okay.
Once the vehicle was actually stopped, Tyree asked, "Why are you stopping me?" It is at that exact point that the dash cam came on and began recording. They never told him why. They never said, why are we stopping you?
Do they have to?
I'm gonna get to that.
Okay. Sorry.
It's a situation where they didn't say anything. They immediately began to scream and say, "Get out of the car." But at the same time that they gave that command, they dragged and pulled him out of the vehicle.
So they didn't give him time to comply.
It was impossible to comply.
Yeah.
On your point of whether or not they need to tell you why they are stopping you, this is what adds to certain misunderstanding, and this is what the state of Connecticut is doing about it. From state to state, from county to county, sometimes a police officer must tell you why they're stopping you. Other times they do not have to tell you. In some counties, as a matter of custom or courtesy, they will tell you. But in most states, in this country, they do not have to tell you
That's what I was
why they
told.
are stopping you. And this is why, as a direct response to the Tyree Nichols murder and tragedy, that Representative Gaston has introduced legislation before the Connecticut Assembly that would require the police officers to tell you why they are stopping you, with the exception of if it would interfere with surveillance or something, exigent circumstances, or if for any reason it would put the police officer's life in jeopardy.
In danger.
In the Tyree Nichols case, there's no question that they weren't in jeopardy in any way, and maybe the entire matter could have been de-escalated if, in fact, they told him why they were stopping him, except that there was no good reason.
There was no good reason.
There was no good reason.
So here's my take on it. If you know that the officers, and Tyree didn't know, I just found out myself, that I think in Connecticut, they don't have to tell you why they stopped you. But I guess if you're nice and flirty with them, they might tell you. But if you ask in an aggressive manner where it's going to escalate to an argument, it's good that you know that they don't have to tell you.
Right, because at least you will understand earlier on, my rights are not being violated, that they don't have to tell you. What's confusing in the state of Connecticut is town by town, county by county, there are differences. And so most people will tell you that, yes, they have to tell me why they're stopping me, because whenever I have been stopped, they have told me. But the law in the state of Connecticut right now, here and today, is the police officer does not have to tell you why they are stopping you in connection with a traffic stop.
Wow. And that's just good to know. See, I didn't know that. I thought if an officer pulls me over, he had to tell me why. So it's good to know the law. Look up the Fourth Amendment. Do whatever you need to do to protect yourself so you don't get in a situation like that. I was watching on the news today. We only have about 3 more minutes left, so I'm going to leave you the rest of the time. It goes by fast, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
I don't know if you even got to say what you needed to say, but we wanted to talk about this a little bit and to give the community a little bit of information on Tyree Nichols, how he got stopped, why he got stopped, and a few tips so you could avoid that. Knowing that the police doesn't have to tell you why they stopped you, you might not ask.
Exactly.
You put your hands on the dash, turn on the lights, do whatever you have to do to save your life. And if the officers see that you're being respectful, then, it's going to go a lot smoother. But if you're getting aggressive, they have on their blue suit, they have on their uniform, they're in a position of authority, and you could break the law without even knowing it, and then it could escalate. So that's what I wanted to bring to the table today. I really appreciate you coming on. We have 2 minutes left, and I'm going to leave you the last 2 minutes to share with the community anything that you want to say about Tyree Nichols, the law, or anything else that you have.
Well, I certainly want to thank you for bringing me onto the show. And what I would like to share is to encourage everyone, once again, please review what your rights are, what to do when you are stopped by the police, and also what are your Fourth Amendment rights. I'm surprised in speeches and in lectures how people are not fully aware of what their Fourth Amendment rights are. So the number one thing that we can do for our community is to encourage people to get the information and the knowledge that they can about the Fourth Amendment, because it may very well be a matter of life and death.
Thank you very much. That is awesome. So that's great information. And I want to thank you again for coming on. Don is very humble. He is a very, very talented lawyer. He's from Harvard. And in my book, Harvard lawyers are top shelf. So thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you for coming on and sharing this information with the community. And hopefully you'll come back again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, audience. This is the David Goodman Reality and Truth Show, and we're on your side.